Welcome back to Jasmine's First Impression Sports Talk. And tonight we have a great panel for you guys, so let's get started.
Welcome to Jasmine Pollock's First Impression Sports Talk, the fastest growing sports talk show in the country. And now, here's your host, Jasmine Pollock.
Well, we're going to hop right into the segment. So the first segment of the night is the NFL. We've seen this past weekend that we've seen a lot of great games. We saw, there's going to be a big game tonight between the Bills and the Patriots. That's a huge playoff implication game. And as of right now, the Patriots are the number one seed. So, Dad, I want to start with you. Being that, we saw all these AFC teams, now we're starting to see it's getting tighter. It's getting tighter. The Baltimore Ravens losing, Patriots are on a roll, Dolphins are starting to win. What is your take on the AFC right now?
Well, right now, I think everything's up in the air. I think looking at Buffalo, and that whole, with the Buffalo and then the Patriots or whatever else, you got to say the Patriots because their history is going to be the team you're going to look at because they've been playing consistent defense all year, and Mac Jones has been playing pretty well. And that's their formula is, don't turn the ball over and play defense. And, Belichick is a mastermind when it comes to, the situations of the game. And I think that's what sets him aside from other coaches is his situational awareness of the game. So right now, my pick would have to be right now. It's a little early still, but I have a hard time seeing anybody else taking out the Patriots right now in that division. I just think that's a team that I'm going to keep an eye on because they've just been consistent, and they're getting better as they go.
Not to mention their defense is number one in the league, so we know what they're all about. Now going to you, Cole. Based off, I know you're a Pittsburgh fan. There was a big win yesterday over the Baltimore Ravens, the top-seeded Baltimore Ravens. What was your take on that whole game?
I was happy with some parts, but I wasn't happy with other parts. The defense, I thought, at times played very well, but it always seems like when it comes to third down, it could be third down and 12, and they can't get off the field. They got a lot of sacks yesterday, which was very nice. But I thought, offense too was stagnant. But the thing about the Steelers is that there is no strong part of this team. The defense isn't very good. Just look at how they've played. And I don't want to hear injuries and all that because that means people have to step up. It's football. There's going to be injuries.
Yeah, I agree. And for me, when I looked at the Baltimore Ravens, I was thinking, of course, they're still going to be there at the end, but you're starting to see a little dip. Lamar's not playing to the best of his ability right now, and there's a lot of teams starting to blitz as we get closer and closer to the playoffs. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they adjust with him because it's only going to get tougher. And like I said before, I do think now the Patriots are the favorite to me, just how they've been playing, and they've been very silent. It's been, just handle your business, play your game, do what you have to do. But Jeremiah, to you, being that you don't like the Patriots, you don't like the Bills, so you don't really care about this game because you're a Dolphins fan, and the Dolphins fans are happy because you guys are on a 5-game winning streak, and you guys are in the hunt for a playoff spot if you guys continue to win, and of course, barring other teams losing and stuff like that. What's your take on the Dolphins right now?
I would feel, even more happy if this 5-game winning streak started from the beginning. But right now, when it comes to this team, this team right here, I think when it came to those losses that we had, when it came to those close ones, especially in Jacksonville, the ones that came with in Atlanta when it came to the Falcons, after those games happened, it just seemed like when we went to Houston and got those, when we hit on that money, the roll, and then we went to Baltimore, we got that, and then we got the Jets, and then it just kept going. And I think just with this team going and everything else like that, we can actually aim for a playoff spot because we have a chance to actually win out. Now it's all about executing. And this is what I have always, tug of war with my team, especially at the beginning of the season. I even had to tweet to the organization to tell them to get their stuff together because us Dolphins fans, we're trying to get some winning seasons rather than having another continued rebuilding season. And with the team that we have right now, everybody coming off of injuries, and we could actually get to a good spot in a playoff or even go to the wild card. And for the teams that's like, Buffalo and also the Patriots up there, they are incredible teams, especially the Patriots. They took me by, a whole shock this year. Number one in defense, like you said, and their offensive rating is like through the roof. You already see what Matt Jones is doing. You already know about the Belichick defense already. But I just think that, it's going to be a toss up really, because I don't really know who will be that number one if you go all the way to the last game this season. Anybody can catch that, in my opinion.
Yeah, for me, I feel like I said before, I just think based off of what I'm seeing in the AFC and what I've continuously seen for like there's a steady trend going on. I feel like the Patriots were rocky in the beginning. There's a lot of questions. There's a lot of, things going around, of course, getting rid of Cam and different things like that. That's all been circulating. Of course, the Belichick versus Brady conversation, that's constantly been happening. They're starting to find they're starting to find themselves right now. And it's, of course, the perfect time. And I feel like my pick going in was Buffalo to win the whole conference. Obviously, this is a big game tonight, and Buffalo can't afford to lose. And honestly, the Chiefs are starting to creep, but guess what? Patrick Mahomes did not throw any touchdowns yesterday, and he did not throw over 200 yards, which is very concerning. So they can't win a playoff game if he can't deliver how he's supposed to. So for me, in Tennessee, I don't know how far Tennessee is going to go without Derrick Henry. I don't know. They're saying he's supposed to be back, but you don't know how it's just a lot of questions with them. There are no questions to me with this Patriots team. There's the coach, the players, all of that. They have the pieces in order to compete, and they very much so could go through Foxborough in order to get to the Super Bowl, and that's a very tough place to play. But to me, I feel like the Bills, they still have a chance. Of course, Baltimore still has a chance. They're still out there, circling around. But Lamar has to play a lot better. He has to play to how he was on that streak earlier this year. He has to play a lot better. And I feel like teams are starting to show more pressure. They're starting to get after him. And I feel like the coach has to create a better game plan for him so that way he feels comfortable. Get it out to your running backs. Throw it away. If you can't always make a play, you can't always be a Superman. So I think that's what needs to happen. But for me, like I said, I think the Patriots are the best team in the AFC right now. And I feel like if they continuously win, they're going to be the number one seed, and it's going to go through Foxborough. But that wraps up this segment. We're going to go into the next segment after a short break talking about the college football playoffs. So we'll be right back.
Water. It's everywhere. We drink it, we bathe with it, we cook with it. Coffee's made with water. Toilets won't flush without it. It's used for washing clothes, dishes, utensils, pots, pans, floors, and our teeth. Plants and crops need water, animals drink it, and fish need it too. And don't forget, we can have a lot of fun in the water. Water. What will we do without it?
Well, welcome back, everyone, to Jasmine's First Impression Sports Talk. And to wrap up tonight, we're going to talk about the college football playoffs. Now, to start with, we saw this past weekend, I know what I said. I've said it on previous shows that I felt like Georgia was going to win it all. It's still a possibility, but I thought Georgia was going to have that undefeated season. I thought Georgia was going to steamroll through Alabama. Obviously, I was wrong. They got steamrolled. And to me, I feel like Georgia's defense became overrated. And then the Roll Tide came in there and played, the best of their ability. And, Dad, I want to start with you. You were the main one that was talking about this game and talking about these championship games. What was your take on Georgia and Alabama's game?
Well, I wasn't surprised at all, as we talked about before. I said it when Alabama lost to A&M that Alabama is going to create a scenario to where there's going to be some controversy because they're going to put themselves in a position to win. And I didn't feel. I mean, Nick Saban's record against Georgia is ridiculous. And I didn't feel that Georgia was going to beat Alabama because guess what's happened? Alabama's gotten better throughout the season. And college is a little bit harder to gauge about how good a team is based off of how they dominate other teams because if they're not playing in Alabama and they're playing some of these other teams that are not doing that well, then they look so much better. And I think that Georgia had opportunities to win yesterday, but there were uncharacteristic mistakes, and I think there was some coaching, flops in that game because some of the things that happened, and then I don't know if they were starstruck. I don't know what was going on. There was blown coverages. There was interceptions thrown where I mean blatant the defender double coverage. We're going to throw it right to the safety, or I think it was the safety to undercut it when the guy threw the second interception. But I think that it's going to be. I mean, you know how I feel about the playoff system. I don't think it's big enough because there's a lot of teams that are not going to make it in as always. And logistically, I don't know how you make it bigger with so many different teams, but I think that Alabama's still the cream of the crop as long as Saban's there, as long as his recruiting is what it is. They're going to continue to be the cream of the crop. And right now, I don't know who's going to be able to take them out based off how they handle Georgia. I mean, that's basically all I got to say about that.
Yeah, we'll definitely see. It's going to be Alabama versus Cincinnati and Michigan versus Georgia. That's what we're going to see. So Cole, to you, what was your take being at the Final Four? What surprised? Were you surprised to see Cincinnati get into the Final Four? Were you surprised about that, or that was an expectation of yours?
No, they should be in the Final Four. They beat Notre Dame on the road, which is a very tough place to play in college football. They absolutely should be in the Final Four. And I think you can make an argument that they should be number one in the country because they're the only undefeated team in the nation. Cincinnati and Alabama potentially could be a very good game. And I don't know who's going to win. But also, it's very hard to bet against Nick Saban. As long as as for every year in college football, it doesn't really matter because Alabama is just going to reload. That's just the way how it is. They're good every single year because Nick Saban knows how to recruit, and that is a very attractive place to play for any high school athlete.
Yeah, I agree. And even with that, like Cincinnati, they've been dominant all year. The games they're playing, and just they've been undefeated the whole year. And I even had this argument, even looking at the four. I honestly felt like even though Alabama beat the number one team in the country, Georgia, and how they beat them, yeah, it was very impressive. But to me, I felt it either should have been the number one spot should either went to Michigan or Cincinnati, but obviously Cincinnati because they're the only undefeated team left. But Jeremiah, to you, when we look at this Michigan team, we saw them catch fire against Ohio State, and they finally beat Ohio State after Jim Harbaugh had an 0-5 record against them beforehand. Now he finally went and got the job done in the big house. So now, what are the expectations of Michigan? Do you think they can beat Georgia because their defense is good and they can run the ball very well? So what do you think?
To be honest with you, I think that Michigan right now is on a roll right now to where they have the most confidence through the roof. First of all, they made it right there to the second in the ranking. So after this last win that they just had, and just seeing what just happened to Georgia and how they just got dog walked by the whole Alabama team just after they went up like 10-0, and then Alabama just went on that run. Michigan knows that they can be that team because every single game, even when it came to the Ohio State game, you were thinking that Ohio State would, be so dominant over Michigan, and, it would be a certain thing like that. But Michigan has continued to pull an upset, and made their way up there to where they have that respect now to where I am here, to where they like, I want Alabama. I want Cincinnati. I want all these teams, and give me Georgia. Because even when it came to Georgia last game, you would think that this team just from the beginning of the whole season that just started to right now, even before the loss, they was on this win streak. They was number one in defense. They were just, you would think that they would just go straight undefeated and win the whole championship, but they just came right down to earth and did Georgia things, which is come back to reality. And I felt like, Michigan, they have a big chance to win this game and maybe even face off against either Alabama or Cincinnati.
And I feel like these are very interesting matchups because I feel like when you look at both teams, I've seen Cincinnati play, I've seen Georgia play, I've seen Michigan and Alabama play all year. These teams match up very well with each other, especially that Michigan and Georgia game. They match up like strength on strength. It's going to be very interesting, and I feel like Michigan's quarterback play is a lot better than Georgia's quarterback play because this whole Georgia team was their bread and butter this year was their defense. That was just what they won their games by. They got a lot of short fields, a lot of turnovers. Teams couldn't really score, so it gave the Georgia offense time to score. This Michigan defense is very good. Like, people don't realize that. We forget that Ohio State's offense was the number one offense in the country, and they did their job. Like, I mean, Michigan handled them. So it's going to be a very interesting game, and I'm really excited because now we're seeing new teams. Like, I'm excited to see a new team like Cincinnati and Michigan. They haven't been in this situation before in a long time. Especially for Cincinnati. Of course they're coming in as underdogs. They're looking at them, their conference and different things like that. But those guys are going to be ready to play. But it's hard, like Cole said, it's hard to bet against Nick Saban. But it's amazing to see new teams come in, especially how Cincinnati and Michigan came in this year and played throughout the whole season. But Cole, I want to come back to you. So there's always this question. So Alabama loses to an unranked team. They're the number one team in the country. Michigan loses to a very good Michigan State team earlier this year. What do you think about that? Like, what's your take on that?
These whole college football rankings, it's all about how they can make the most money. That's the only thing they care about. That's to me, that is how they base their rankings. And I know it might sound crazy, but the only thing they care about is money. I think Michigan should be number one over Alabama. Looking at who Michigan played, they did play in the Big Ten. They beat Ohio State, even though they played at the Big House. That's a very impressive victory for Michigan. They should be number one over Alabama, but it does not surprise me that Alabama is number one. But you can also make this case that Alabama went out and they beat Georgia in the SEC championship game.
Right. That's true.
Yeah, that could
And when you look at that, that's also a big win. Georgia's been the number one team for a majority of the year. They've been the quote unquote the most dominant team. And I find it interesting too. 3 out of the 4 teams came in winning. Georgia did not come in winning, which I find it, interesting. It's very weird to me. But Georgia's the only team. Okay, we had a terrible loss against Alabama. It was a very crazy loss. Now we're going into a red hot Michigan team. So that game, I think I'm going to be a lot more invested, even though I want to see the Alabama and Cincinnati game. But that game right there, it seems a lot different. It's always the 2 and 3 teams that, the second-ranked team, the third-ranked team that play in the playoffs that always have those, crazy moments and stuff like that. But back to you, Dad. Like, what is your prediction on who's going to be in the championship? Will we see a rematch of Alabama and Georgia? Will we see Alabama versus Michigan? Will we see Cincinnati and Michigan? What do you think, Dad?
Well, the thing is, Georgia has the dogs on the field. They got the athletes. What Georgia's going to show up? That's the whole question. Now, Michigan definitely has the athletes. After what I saw, they got a lot of speed. They play very good defense. And when I look at Michigan, I like the grit that they're playing with right now. So to me, I would think Michigan is that team that you're going to have to watch because they're coming in hot. They're coming in with a lot of confidence, and they have a lot of athletes on the field. So I think that when it comes to some of these teams like Alabama, even Georgia, and maybe even Cincinnati, I think that Michigan will be that team that you have to pay attention to for all of them. But like Mr. Cole said, in these situations, when it comes to championship, all the marbles on the table, you have to give a little bit of the edge to Nick Saban because of his experience, and he will have the routine in place to make sure that these guys are locked in. So, with that being said, the team's better than what they were, but at the same time, I don't give them way too much credit because I don't know what Georgia team that was the other day. Because I watched the game and there were many missed opportunities from Georgia
Yeah.
where they could have blown that game open. So right now to me it's kind of a toss up, but I'm going to give the edge to Alabama though.
Cole, what about you?
I really, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say it's probably going to be an Alabama Michigan. That's what I'm leaning towards right now. But I could see it going either way. I mean, Cincinnati could pull off an upset. It probably won't happen because I just have to give that edge to Nick Saban. Just because he is Nick Saban, he can recruit great high school athletes and turn them into great football players. I mean, just look at some of the stars Alabama has produced in the NFL.
Jeremiah, what about you?
I'm going same thing with Cole, Alabama and Michigan, because even when they was versing, Auburn a couple weeks ago, Auburn had them on the ropes, but they couldn't finish out. Georgia had them at the beginning, but they can't finish out. One thing about Nick Saban's teams, you can never count them out. You gotta go the whole hours with them all the way to the clock hit zero. That's my thing always with the Alabama teams. And I think that Michigan, they can give Alabama a run for their money, especially in that championship. I think it's going to be a great game. That's just my picks right now.
Yeah, me, I still don't know yet. Even though I'm giving the edge, I will give the edge to Bama just because of the experience, just because of just what Nick Saban stands for and those athletes. But there's a certain mystery about the Cincinnati team because they've been good for the past couple of years lately. Like it's not like they just got good this year; they were good last year. So it's very interesting to see them. Like this is the big stage for them. Like this is a huge stage, probably the biggest stage they'll ever see if they continue to win and they pull off a huge upset like that. And they're capable because this Alabama team I've seen all season, even though I think the Georgia win was the most impressive win they've had the whole season. I will do attest to that, but I've seen some things that are concerning if I'm an Alabama fan. Like there's still some things like, maybe, maybe not, I don't know. And maybe we just found out maybe Georgia was overrated the whole time. Maybe they just, okay, we're playing lesser talented teams, we're blowing through them, and then go to Alabama, it's a roadblock. But for the Michigan game, part of it is because I don't like Georgia, but I'll go for Michigan. I'm pulling for Michigan to win that game, but we'll definitely see. I think it's going to be very exciting. It's going to be something to see. I think I'm just glad there's new teams. There's Alabama and Georgia, but I'm glad there's new teams in there that we can see and see what they're about, and it gives a chance for Cincinnati to see what they're made of because you're playing against the best of the best. You're playing against the arguably the greatest coach in history in college football. So we're definitely going to see. But that wraps up tonight's show. Thank you, Cole. Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Jeremiah. It's always a pleasure having you guys talking about sports. It was a great conversation about NFL. It was a great conversation about college football. And thank you, Leon. Thank you, Jay, for the production. Thank you to the audience for giving your support. We'll see you here on Jasmine's First Impression Sports Talk next Monday at 8:45. Have a good night.